I get this asked a lot, and sometimes it's so, they corner me so much that I think it's racist. They're, what kind of cuisine is this? And then I would look them directly and I said, it's California, specifically Angelino. And then I'll start going on and why I call it this. They're like, no, what kind of cuisine is it? And I said, California?
You're listening to the Taste Podcast. I'm Editor-in-Chief Matt Rodbard, here with Senior Editor Anna Hezel.
Today on the show, we have Minh Phan, the chef and owner of Los Angeles restaurant Porridge Puffs. Also on the show, we have Chef Daniel Holzman answering one of Matt's burning food questions. But Matt, what did you and Minh talk about?
Yeah, Minh is what a mind. Really, that's all I can say. She's really smart, has like really thoughtful things to say in this interview. But like mostly, let's talk about Porridge Puffs, a restaurant. It's so good.
Yeah, what does that mean? Do you have to choose just porridge or puffs?
Right.
And what are either of those things?
Yeah, porridge is like savory porridge, like juke or congee, and she's just doing braised meats on top of it. She's using a lot of California products, and so it doesn't really have kind of an ethnicity or a home turf. It's just delicious, mushy goodness.
Is it very LA?
It really is. I mean, she's worked in LA for years and is known on the scene, and it really feels like she's captured the spirit of LA. It's located in historic Filipino Town, and we talk a lot about the location and kind of how that reflects the food she's cooking. It's a really cool conversation.
Here's Matt talking to Minh.
Minh Phan, welcome to the Taste Podcast.
I love your voice.
Oh, it's like half cold, half like gravelly Sam Elliott.
I love your voice.
Okay, so let's talk about porridge, because porridge is served in many cultures. Why
every single culture, not some, all.
Why base a restaurant around this fundamental dish, but a dish that maybe hasn't had its own restaurant?
Because everyone eats porridge. If you were born, you've eaten porridge. You just don't know it, because it's the first thing you eat. Period. And if you're really lucky, it's the last thing you eat before you die.
Oh, because that's hospital food and you're in a coma?
No, because that's what you eat when you don't have teeth.
Oh my God, I went to a morbid place and you went to like a better place.
No, it's what you eat when you're like all gummy and smiley, because that's where you start life, all gummy and smiley, and that's how you die if you're really lucky. It's all gummy and smiley, because I don't want fake teeth, but I want to eat porridge. So but if you're a kid, if you've ever had a mixture of liquid and grain, or liquid and vegetables, technically potage, you've had porridge. Either it be grits or risotto or chow. That's what I grew up with. Congee, whatever. Juke. Yeah, you've had it. Oatmeal. Yeah. Porridge. But I like the savory kind,
Yeah, and that's the cool part about this restaurant, because I'm seeing porridge as the ultimate canvas for just serving delicious flavors and combinations. Are you thinking that way?
That's how I got started. I've always loved porridge. When I was a kid, I only got it about twice a year. One occasion is one that I love, and it's usually the day after Thanksgiving. My family had a traditional Americana Thanksgiving, ham, turkey, but then the day after wasn't as traditional. My mom took all the leftovers, mainly the bones, the carcasses, and then she made porridge. So we always had the day after Thanksgiving ham and turkey porridge, and that's always a happy, wonderful occasion, because it's like it's like the comfort food after the comfort food. And then the other occasion we would have it is when you're sick. And that's a whole different kind of a porridge. That's like bland and, because you don't want to put a lot of spice or flavors. It's just bland. And I never liked that porridge. But then I kind of remember craving porridge and faking being sick. And, and then playing with then playing with all the condiments myself. Because, my mom would just leave all the condiments out. So there'll be ginger and soy sauce. It'd be my way of being like, ooh, I can, make my own favorite bite. So the project came, I call it a project because it started as a project. I know people like to use the word pop-up, but for me personally, it's a project. I had a restaurant at the edge of the Hollywood Farmers Market, where I was in partnership with the organization that runs the market. And by partnership, they had the space that was great. We made some promises to each other. They provided me the space at reduced rent. We shared revenue, and then my promise to them was to use all farmers market ingredients.
Cool.
And when you do that, you get a lot of stuff that you don't know what to do with, or it's things that are number 2s, number 3s, things that if you don't use that day, they're gone. So that really inspired me to be like, what's a great canvas for all this stuff? And, I love pickling, I love jamming and all this stuff. And I'm like, what's a great canvas? And people do toast. I love toast, but I'm not.
Squirrel did that. Wait, this is real. Squirrel did that. Like,
Squirrel's
let's
amazing.
not do toast again.
Yeah, but it's like, and I love it, but I'm just, if I do toast, I'm going to have to learn to become a really great bread baker, which I did. But so I just knew that.
Which you are, by the way.
But I like making, but I'm not. Ooh, that's like someone pounding. That's usually pounding me.
Is that, what is that? That's a food thing.
What?
They pounding is like making a food.
They were pounding. They're pounding pork loins to make pork roulade for dinner.
Okay,
so that's what they're pounding.
That is an actual food listener. That's a food production cost, not a construction.
Yeah.
But you're back to the question. You are a dope bread baker, though.
I like baking bread. I don't think I'm dope. I think I just like making it because it's, I just, that's how I got started is making bread. People don't really know that, but I love making bread. I got started, in pastries and bread. I think that's where you and I connect because through a good friend of ours.
Dan Holzman?
Yep, Dan Holzman.
So you worked with him in Aceh?
Yeah, I worked with him in Aceh many eons ago.
Talk about that time.
We're very old. It's great. I mean, Dan is one of my dearest, closest culinary friends. We, we check in with each other often, and I think it was just a different time. It was Venice, in a
what year?
long time.
It's like over 10 years ago.
Like maybe, way over 10 years.
14 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's like when LA was really like Venice, Santa Monica had a certain vibe. So downtown was nothing in terms of culinary, of course, not saying nothing.
Yeah, we worked at this restaurant called Ashe. It was probably one of the very first known farm-to-table restaurants in Venice. And I've always been a farm-to-table chef. So I don't even use those words ever in any of our menu because I think that's the ethos that I grew up with. That's always what we've done. But at the time, it was like the premier farm-to-table restaurant. He was the chef. I was the baker. We did I did pastries, I baked bread. We had a lot of fun. There's a lot of memories from those days because, you always remember, these very special times that you spend intimately in a kitchen with with a team and, people. And Daniel's always been brilliant and crazy and wonderful. But the one thing I really remember the most is I think I had him put quinoa, we were R&Ding and going back and forth. I'm like, yeah, there's this grain I really think you should try. And he's like, and I showed it to him. He's like, quinoa, and we were going back and forth. And this is before anyone used it. And I'm like, no, I think we should really try it.
It's from Peru, and it's like an ancient
grain. Yeah. And then it was quinoa, and we put it on our menu, and we had to go search for it. And he brought it back to me, and he goes, and he threw this tiny little bag at me, and he goes, "This was $50. I hope it's worth it." And then we put it on the menu, and then everyone followed suit. So I feel like that's kind of Daniel. My thing is we would do things, and then people, and that's what I learned is you do things and people follow. Yeah. But it's always been our thing. It's like people are just going to follow you, and it's going to be okay. And I feel like it's a lot. So people always like, hey, people put more porridge on the menu. And I'm like, people have always put porridge on the menu. They just don't call it that. They call it risotto. They call it juke. They call it something else. And we purposely call our restaurant Porridge and Puffs with lowercase p's because I don't want to own porridge. I don't want to own puffs. It's the people. It's the word of the people. It should stay in the vocabulary. Everyone should make it. We should keep that tradition alive. Mm-hmm. I just make one kind of porridge.
And you opened recently 4 months ago in the traditional historic Filipino town.
I don't know if it's traditional. So
what is the proper name?
I think it's historic.
Historical.
It's Historic Filipino Town. It's a designation by the city of Los Angeles because there was a community. There's a lot of activism in the Filipino community early on. There's a lot of radicals. I love this tradition. There's a lot of academics and radicals of Filipino descent in this area, and historically has been in this area. And I'm really proud of it. Being a woman of color and seeing, other activists that have lived here. I think there's just the spirit of it, and I really like that. But we're actually, business-wise, it's probably like I should have just say, oh, we're in Silver Lake or Echo Park. That's really
You're closer.
That's our zip code is, that's, I know our audience comes from there, and our zip code's the same. But my spirit is I want us to be a little bit more of not new, but old. You know what I mean? I'm more of the old spirit. I'm like, hey, there's some of this. It's like it's but I really like calling ourselves, saying we're in Hi-Fi, historic Filipino town.
Let's talk about the way that you're presenting porridge at the restaurant, because I'm the savory porridge. There's sausage and there's tempura, and it's such a lovely combination of textures. I get that a lot from your cooking. Tell me, what inspires your recipes, and what are some of the dishes that you really are happy with right now?
It's so cliche, but we're driven by the seasons. We're in California. People ask. I get this asked a lot, and sometimes it's so. They corner me so much that I think it's racist. But they're like, what kind of cuisine is this?
Oh, man.
And then I would look them directly in the eye and I said, it's Californian, specifically Angelino. And then I'll start going on why I call it this. They're like, no, what kind of cuisine is it? And I said, California. And I would, I don't budge. But what they're really trying to find out is what ethnicity I'm from.
Oh, I see.
And then I said, oh, my parents are Vietnamese. I'm ethnically Vietnamese. I love being Vietnamese, but my parents are culturally many things, as am I. And, they're from the Midwest, and I think they're very Midwestern. Yeah. But I'm Californian, and I cook Californian food, and I don't think I can do this anywhere else in the world, and use the ingredients I do and be driven by the ethos that I'm driven by if I'm not surrounded by this Angelino community. Which, and it's like there's a connection to the Bay Area, too. So I think California's a better way because there's a lot of those ethos that, that also exist in the Bay Area. So I call the cuisine Californian, and my approach is always start with ingredients. That's what Californian cuisine is.
And that's like the farmer's market ethic where you started this project.
Yeah.
It's just like looking at what's available. It is a cliche, but it's not, though, because that's how restaurants work. And it's like the ethic. It's not a cliche. So, just for example, this past week, what were you cooking with? What were you finding at the market?
Right now is not. I'm really trying to find the little gems that are different. Everything's interesting to me. Like I do kale 1,000 ways. We don't even call out kale in the menu because I hate that word because everyone uses it, but I personally love it. So I use it. I feel like there's so many different varieties and they taste different. There's so many textures, but we sneak it into our menu without telling people. Like I love chrysanthemums. You guys just missed the chrysanthemum dish. Chrysanthemum just went out of season. I love chrysanthemums. We were at the tail end of it, and the rain kind of killed it. So I love chrysanthemums. Kabocha, of course, all the winter squashes. On the dinner menu, we have a velvet, which is based on heirloom squashes. We have a lot of citrus going on, so we sneak. Yeah. And we have kind of tail end of apples and pears, which we pickle. I'm very, very, very excited about kumquat season. I love kumquats, another citrus, but it's a little later in the season. So I have kumquats coming.
There's such a little burst of flavor.
Yeah,
I love
it
that.
is. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to the spring and more grains. I mean, we've been I do have my luxury items, like our herb salad is a super luxury item, which I love it so much, so I'm kind of fighting with my team to take it off the menu. Our herb salad has 5 herbs in it, at least. It has raram, which is Vietnamese hot mint. It has shiso, varying varieties depending on the day and where I can find it. It has holy basil. It has mint. And it has cilantro.
I love the idea of the herb salad as a luxury ingredient because you're sourcing these all from individual, sources.
It's
and
such
farms.
a luxury. I mean, if you and I worked, where we met. I worked in Copenhagen, and in Copenhagen they would put all of these on a dish in fine dining, and it'd be like the most expensive dish because it's herbs and you're showcasing it, and they would lay it all out and they would do it 10 different ways. And I feel like this is my every person's dish, that dish, but for every person. And it's $6. It's a $6 dish. It's my favorite dish. I'm doing it at a loss because herbs are so expensive.
But you really want this to be a statement of the kind of cooking you're doing.
Yeah, I really love it. But it's a luxury item right now because herbs are super duper expensive, and cleaning it takes a long time, and there's a lot of waste because things get wilted and rain, and not because of our team, but because of just weather. Yeah.
Let's talk about, I mean, Copenhagen is interesting because we did meet in Copenhagen during one of the MAG conferences, but you didn't work at Noma. You worked at a castle, Dragsholm Slot. That's like my...
Dragsholm Slot.
Dragsholm Slot.
Dragsholm
Slot. That seems more Swedish than the Danish accent. Yeah. So I love, it's a little bit out of the Copenhagen center, right?
It's about an hour from Copenhagen. And at the time, you go to Copenhagen, and I was looking for a space. I was looking for a space for years, as we know. I was in the middle of looking for a space. An opportunity came up because Matt was doing all these workshops, so I led a workshop. So I'm like, hey, and I have really good friends in Copenhagen. So I wanted to extend my stay and be like, I should do some field work and, just kind of see what... The one thing that I'm really interested in before opening the restaurant... of course, chefs and ingredients and kitchens, but I know. I've been in a lot of them. I've been around for a long time. I'm like, how different is that going to be? I knew it was going to be that super different, but the one thing I really wanted to research was their system. Mm-hmm. Is how do they do it in a country that is so people-minded?
Right.
On the surface, and how...
You're talking about like a 32-hour labor work week and lots of social services.
And how do cooks survive? Because in being a cook in the States and specifically in LA, like none of us can survive. So I'm like, how do they do it in Denmark? How do they do it in Copenhagen? They work really hard too. So it's like, it's totally, that myth of like 32-hour work week. It's not really true. If you're in the kitchen, those people work just as hard as we do. And they think about their work and they may get an extra day off, but they work. So that's what I've learned from that. But I really wanted to immerse myself a little bit in the system. And then what I realized, because I was there in the summer, their ingredients are so similar to ours. Like, we have the nasturtiums, we have, the summer brassicas. They were getting a lot the exact same, and they're by the sea,
berries,
the berries, and the berries and the seafood. And I couldn't believe how similar our ingredients were. I'm really into seaweed, and the seaweed, and it's like, and it was just like so similar. I'm like, wow, like, when you work, every time, once in a while, I'll go stage in a friend's kitchen or go to a fine dining place. I'm like, hey, chef, I'm just... what's going on? I always realize we're all doing the exact same thing, buying from the exact same people, foraging in the exact same places. But then my ethos is, how do I do it on a daily basis where people can do it in a neighborhood restaurant? So I do that every day. So that's
you are absolutely the embodiment of that ethic with Porridge and Puffs.
Thanks, Matt.
It's so cool to see it in action.
That's my dream. Yeah, because maybe one day I can do it because then I'll have a bigger staff where my wonderful staff isn't dying, where we'll have more people and we can charge more money. We really undercharge people for food.
I was going to say, but that's okay. I think that you want to open and be hospitable to as many people as possible and get the word out. But I
just don't want to do it at the expense of my team and us, because we all work so hard. And that's kind of where we're at. But it's fine. That's my own issue. I'll figure it out. But that's the only thing that I would change. But the ethos are exactly the same at any fine dining restaurant. Any of us, our whole team consists of fine dining chefs. I've hired a little different. Yeah, I've hired a little different. I learned a lot of things in opening this restaurant still after all these years. So I know I needed to do it a little different. It's the one... This is kind of like my, when the reason I'm opening a restaurant rather than working as an executive chef somewhere else is I get to touch everything. My food cost is outrageous. My labor cost is even more outrageous. But who cares? You know what? I sleep at the restaurant. Whatever. I get to touch everything.
Literally, there's a cot 10 feet from where we're recording this.
Don't tell people that. Don't tell people
Well, you just said it. You told everyone. And I'm saying this is not hyperbole. There's literally a cot that we're sitting on.
Don't tell people. so embarrassing.
But it's important to state this is not an easy job. But it seems to me that you can make it work when you put out a product that's really highly original and delicious, of course. I'm
lucky. I have a community behind me. I've been doing it for a really long time. There's no overnight success. And people are like, hey, it's a pop. I'm like, no, I've been doing this for 20 years, dudes. Yeah. Like, I've been working in other people's kitchens, slaving away. And I've worked really hard everywhere else. It's really hard work. And it's not overnight ever. And I think that's the one thing that if people are like, how did you do it overnight? I'm like, and I just stop them in their tracks. I'm like, I didn't do it overnight, friends. I've been doing this for a really long time. And this project, even Porridge Puffs, is 5 years old. It's 5 years old.
Right. You were at the farmer's market for much of that time.
Yeah.
But it's only 4 months old here.
It's 4 months old at
on Beverly.
The brick and mortar. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful space too. It's like really like, it's 2 levels. It's airy. There's beautiful, there's all these dried herbs and plants on the wall. The aesthetic is cool. Like, come on.
Thanks, friend. Yeah, it's simple. It's just I just think it's about the food and it's about the warmth that the space brings. We didn't do much. My budget was a penny.
Well, you have beautiful white walls and you put out good food. We ask all of our guests, I want to know if you have a dream cookbook project somewhere inside your brain, what would that be?
A dream cookbook project. You know what? I don't. I really don't. It's really funny. Okay. I feel like if I wrote a cookbook, it would be a ways away.
Yeah, but what you read cookbooks, you buy cookbooks.
You know what? I would make a film before I wrote a book. I'm more of a film.
Tell me more.
I think, and it wouldn't even be a documentary. I think it'd be like a narrative feature, I don't know, because I just feel like food it's just a different medium for me. It's creative and it's wonderful, but I like to make things up, and I feel like cookbooks, people want to test it and define it, and I do everything on the whim, and I'm whimsical, and I want to make stuff up, and I feel like a cookbook would just be literally bound, and people would test it, and I'd be like, oh, it didn't work, I'm sorry. Well, you know what? Even Coda Farms, so consistent. Our rice purveyor, right? Our rice that we use, so consistent. We use it every day, and every day the rice is something different. Every day. I taste every single batch of porridge that comes out of our kitchen, and and not even for the seasoning, just for the rice and the texture. It does something different every day. Same exact time, same exact water. We think it's the same exact water, but it's different every time.
Well, the water's
the water's different. The rice is different because how much moisture is in the air, how much what else are you cooking that day in that kitchen? Are you baking? It all changes. What are you storing it next to? Did we forget? Did we put it in the wrong place? It all changes, and I think cookbooks are great. I love them, but I look at the pictures.
So an animated feature featuring some rice, and a rice having a mind of its own.
Yes. Oh my God, that would be my dream. Yeah.
I heard you can make films in this town.
So I hear. I haven't made one, so I don't know.
Minh Phan, thank you for joining the Taste Podcast.
Thanks, Matt and friends.
Here's Matt speaking with Daniel Holzman.
Dan Holzman is here, columnist for 100 Questions for My Friend the Chef. You are my friend the chef, and I have a question.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Why is Etxebarri the most important meat restaurant in the world?
This is a really great question. Although I don't know if Etxebarri is the most important meat restaurant in the world. It's certainly one of the most important grill restaurants. Period. End of story. I learned about Etxebarri actually in Singapore. Etxebarri is in northern Spain, but I learned about it in Singapore where I was eating at a restaurant called Burnt Ends, and the chef had worked at Etxebarri, and he was touting it, and I looked it up, and I realized that I was a dilettante for not knowing about it.
So what do you order at Etxebarri? Where is Etxebarri? How do you get there?
You fly into Bilbao. You check out the Bilbao Guggenheim Museum, obviously, Frank Gehry or something like that, fancy. Lots of sculpture. And then you drive about an hour into the countryside, and there's this unassuming farmhouse that is a 3 Michelin star grill like mecca. Basically, there's a chef with 2 ovens. One of them about 1,000 degrees, burning hot. The other one is dormant and then switched overnight. They cook slow roast in the oven that's kind of like dormant overnight, and then they fire burn and char in the hot oven, and then using shovels they pull the coals out of the hot oven to fire these grills where they basically cook some of the most heavenly foodstuffs to ever grace my lips. And you get the tasting menu because you went all the way there. And the whole time you're eating this tasting menu, you're so jealous because there are these delicious T-bone steaks that are coming out to the tables all around you. And you're like, I screwed up. I should have gotten the T-bone steak with the green salad.
What's on the tasting menu?
Here's the deal. The tasting menu is like all kinds of amazing stuff. There was a almost raw chorizo that blew my mind. It was just grilled from the outside. There are percebes or blah, 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 blah. There's a pronunciation for that. And it's a progression of dishes that changes seasonally and foraged, etc. But then, just when you're kind of like really upset you didn't get the T-bone steak, the last course of the tasting menu comes out, and it's the T-bone steak with this green salad, and it's like heaven. It's like heaven. Imagine you got to have the fancy food of your dreams, and then at the end you got to have a steak.
Just at the end,
At
the
the
steak
end.
for dessert.
Well, then there's probably dessert as well, but I don't remember because I was drinking.
Great green wines from northern Spain too.
I drank some of that.
Chocolate.
Some of that chocolate.
Chocolate.
I did it. I did it.
Dan Holzman, thank you so much.
The Taste Podcast is hosted by Matt Rodbard and me, Anna Heasel. The show is produced by Gabrielle Lewis, studio recordings by Pat Stango, theme music by Steve Rydell. Interviews are recorded live at Books Are Magic in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, and at Penguin Random House Studios in Manhattan. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com. Thanks for listening.